Gentlemen, welcome back to the shop. Today's little project, we'll be building a T-post puller plate, or Y standard as we call it in South Africa. I've taken the pencil and drawn up a little sketch. I'll put it up on here right now, so if you want the dimensions, pause it there and just copy it off or print screen it or whatever the case may be. But that's what I came up with. We'll see if it works, but let's get right into it. Now, first of all, the material that we're using is a 8mm mild steel plate. This was guillotine cut, so don't know if you guys can see there. It's honestly not the greatest cuts, skew in every way, shape and form. So what we'll be doing is I'm going to lay out from the drawing onto the plate, but I'm going to use the center line to start off with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the center line and mark it at the top, and then work from those two surfaces, well, actually from those two layout lines. And once we do that, after we're done, we will be cutting off the edges and making everything square and neat, and getting it to look like something, and not like the dog's hind leg. So I'm gonna time lapse the layout. Bear with me, I'll be back with you just now. Right, so as you saw from the thumbnail, there's going to be some square holes in there. We're drilling out the corners. I marked out the corners, and we'll then be drilling them out with a 10mm. This is, I think, a 3.2mm drill bit, if I can remember correctly, just as a pilot, and then we'll be running them through with the 10mm. So that creates nice round edges that we'll be cutting in between, and to get the saw blade in as well. The knocking sound you're hearing in the background is actually the fan belt on my little Chinese drill press that has finally given up after, I'd say, probably 10-15 years. So not bad. Somewhere between this I replaced it, and luckily I could find a little belt that fit there and carry on. And now we've got a new fan belt on the drill press and drilling out the last couple of 10mm holes. Sounds much better now. Next step, we're cutting the 140mm hole into the plate using bimetal hole saws. They work wonders, but guys, be careful when using them. It likes to bite into the metal, and then everything becomes a sort of helicopter and knocks your hand and 3 stitches later. So please be careful when using them. Just be awake and make sure you've got something to work against. As you can see, I let the plates go around and actually used the drill press upright as a stock for it. There you can see the 10mm holes that we've drilled, as well as the 140mm hole, and as well as the fan belt that's seen the end of its life. Very happy with the life that I got out of it. Not an issue at all. Next step, we are starting to cut out the square holes and grinding out in between the 10mm holes that we've drilled. We won't go through it all. The grinding disc won't fit in there, but we will get to that in the next step, which would be the we'll be using a jigsaw with a metal blade. I'm not at this stage, I wasn't sure if it was going to work, but we'll get to that in now. Just knocking out as much metal as we can with a grinder. And over here we are cutting out with the jigsaw and a little steel blade. The first blade didn't last one cut, and funny enough, that was the more expensive one of the blades that I bought. Then I put in another one, worked fine. We've still got some life left in there. The blades is rated for something like maybe 1.5 millimeters worth of metal, so I really pushed it a bit. In terms of just let it do its work. Let the saw do its work. Don't force it. Let it cut. It took quite a while. I must be honest. It took quite a while getting through it, but eventually we got it. And just to show you that you don't need all of the tools. You can get by with much less tools than you think you would if you just think about it. The only issue is if you haven't got all the nice tools. Like for instance, this would have been good one on if I had a milling machine, but I don't. So I had to cut it out, and now I've got some filing to do. Now the filing isn't necessarily bad. It's not a job I particularly enjoy, but if it needs to be done, it needs to be done, and the end product is always satisfying. So just go through the motions and do what needs to be done. This is for myself. It's actually for a friend's son, but I don't count my hours. So doing your own stuff, you don't count the hours, and that's a cool thing about working in the shop and not doing it for remuneration. So you're not getting any money out of it. So what's your time worth to you compared to what's your sanity worth to you? This next section, we're cutting off the ends that was crooked and guillotine cut to not be nice. So I'm just chopping them off with a little grinder and finishing that up. As well as we will be doing the little round end on the one end, just for aesthetics. I don't think it's really necessary, but just for making it neat, looking good, looking different. I think that's it. This is nothing. I'm not saying artistic, but you can do what you want on it. So feel free to carry on. Guys, this is one of those projects you'll be chucking in the bottom of the toolbox or whatever, and you won't be using it every day. But out on the farm, there's every so often that you want to pull out some T-posts or Y-standards or whatever you call it in your country, and then it'll definitely come in handy. So it's one of those things. Spend the time once, and I think for probably the rest of your life, you'll enjoy the fruits of it. And then just some Y-wheel to knock off the edges, making it sort of handleable. Don't have to worry about wearing gloves to use it. You can do it with a file as well. I just chucked the Y-wheel on the little grinder and knocked off all the edges. The other reason is if you knock off the edges, you get to paint on it. I've seen that if you've got a super sharp edge, the paint doesn't want to stick to the edge, and I'm definitely going to paint this. So that's one of the items. If you've got a bit of a round edge, the paint seems to be sticking more. Well, the paint seems to more like to stick to it than sitting on that knife edge. I think probably with the viscosity. I don't know the science behind it. If you do know, comment down below. And then just taking the die grinder and a little carbide burr and knocking off the unevenness in that also left. So I'm just quickly grinding that out and making sure that that's presentable. I think trying to make your project presentable, even if it's only for yourself, is still a good thing. Gentlemen, there we have it. Sorry if there's a bit of wind noise. Finished it up, painted it bright color so you can find it when you leave it out in the field. This works in a couple of ways. You can either have the high lift jack, the jackal, fit underneath this portion, or a chain as I'll be showing you. I haven't got a jackal with me right now, and then let's slip it over the fence post and see. Right, there we go. So the idea being is that it actually wedges onto the fence post. Let's get on the other side of the gun. The idea being that it wedges onto the fence post as you're pulling it out. So you can either have the jackal under here, or you can use a section of chain like I've got here. Come on. Something like that. Hook it onto your little tractor's lift system at the back. You can hook this to a long post and just create a lever action, and then as you pull on it, it'll just pick up the post out of the ground. Something like that. I'm not going to go through the whole thing now. The nice thing about having a square hole in it is you can actually hook it in multiple ways, and it still fits onto the post, as well as if the top of your post has been hammered skew. That happens a lot of times. If the top of your post has been hammered skew, you can still get it over there and make a shitty job a bit easier. Gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. With that, I'm going to call it. As always, please rate, comment, subscribe, and as always, stay safe out there.